Love isn't loud for me. It doesn't knock. It waits until the moment feels honest enough to open the door. Tonight, I'm standing in that moment. What I'm about to say isn't a surprise wrapped in noise. It's a promise wrapped in courage. A promise I chose quietly, carefully, because the most powerful decisions in life don't ask for permission from the world. They ask for truth from the heart. Some people plan weddings with invitations. I planned this one with faith. And if love has ever found you when you weren't looking, then stay with me, because this story begins where secrets turn into forever. I am planning a secret wedding, not because I'm afraid of the world, but because I respect what love becomes when it is watched too closely, measured too quickly, spoken about before it has finished becoming itself, because some things grow best in the dark, the way roots do, unseen but unbreakable. And this love didn't arrive with fireworks or explanations. It arrived quietly, like a hand finding another hand in the dark, like a breath you didn't know you were holding, finally letting go. And when I realized what it was, I didn't feel the need to tell everyone. I felt the need to protect it, to hold it the way you hold something fragile and powerful at the same time, knowing that noise can turn miracles into performances. And I never wanted this love to perform. I wanted it to live. I didn't plan this wedding with announcements or timelines or crowds. I planned it in moments, in small decisions that said, stay instead of run, choose instead of wait, trust instead of doubt. I planned it every time I looked at you and felt calm instead of chaos. Every time the world felt loud and you felt like silence, I could rest inside. And somewhere between those moments, I understood that love doesn't always ask for permission. Sometimes it just asks for courage, and courage isn't loud either. It doesn't shout its intentions, it moves forward, even when no one is clapping. The secret isn't about hiding you, it's about honoring us, about choosing something real over something visible, because the strongest bonds don't need witnesses, they need commitment, and commitment is a quiet thing. It wakes up every day and decides again, even when no one is watching, even when there is no applause, even when the world would rather see a story than understand it. And I didn't fall in love with you for the story, I fell in love with you for the way you made ordinary moments feel complete, for the way you didn't try to impress me, you just stayed honest. And honesty has a gravity that pulls everything else into place. People think secrets mean fear, but this one means faith. Faith that love doesn't expire if it isn't posted. Faith that forever doesn't need validation. Faith that what we are building is strong enough to stand on its own, unseen if necessary. And when I imagine standing with you, not in front of a crowd, but in front of a truth, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I feel like I'm finally choosing the one thing that matters, because love isn't proven by how many people know about it. It's proven by how deeply two people are willing to show up for each other when the doors are closed. I am planning a secret wedding because this love taught me that intimacy is sacred, that not everything meaningful needs to be shared, that some promises are too important to rush, too personal to display. And when I look at you, I don't see a future I need to explain. I see a present I want to protect, a life that feels steady, a choice that feels final in the best way. And maybe one day the world will know, or maybe it won't, but either way, the commitment will already be real, already be living, already be stronger than opinions, stronger than noise, stronger than timing. And planning this in silence, because courage doesn't always look like standing in the light. Sometimes it looks like standing guard, choosing to shield what matters before it hardens into something unrecognizable. Because love, when exposed too early, starts answering questions it was never meant to hear. And I didn't want this love to become a topic, a debate, a rumor passed from mouth to mouth until its meaning thinned out. I wanted it to stay whole, to stay ours, untouched by expectation, untouched by commentary, untouched by the weight of other people's unfinished stories. Protecting something sacred isn't weakness, it's clarity. It's knowing the difference between sharing and surrendering, between inviting and exposing. And this love asked me for protection long before it asked me for promises. It asked me to slow down, to listen, to recognize that not everyone deserves access to what you're still building. Because when something is still becoming, it needs patience more than applause. And patience is a quiet discipline. It doesn't announce itself. It simply stays. There's a strange kind of bravery in choosing privacy in a world that rewards noise, in choosing depth in a world that scrolls past meaning. And this decision didn't come from fear of judgment. It came from understanding. understanding that sacred things lose their shape when handled by too many hands, that intimacy survives best when it's allowed to breathe without being watched. And I didn't want this love to grow defensive, to start explaining itself before it even finished finding its own voice. Every step toward this secret wedding felt less like hiding and more like alignment, like finally standing where my values already were. Because I've seen what happens when love becomes public property too soon, how it starts performing, how it starts bending, how it starts listening to everything except the two people who matter. And I didn't want to wake up one day realizing I had protected everyone's opinion except our connection. So I chose courage, not the loud kind, but the steady kind, the kind that shows up every day and says this matters even if no one else sees it, the kind that resists the urge to explain, to justify, to prove, because real strength doesn't argue for its existence. It simply exists. And this love exists whether it's announced or not, whether it's celebrated or questioned, whether it's understood or misunderstood. Keeping this sacred means trusting that what we are building doesn't need constant reinforcement from the outside. It means believing that commitment is strong enough to stand without witnesses, that vows whispered carry the same weight as vows shouted, maybe more, because they come from intention, not performance. And when I imagine us choosing each other without an audience, it feels honest, it feels aligned, it feels like the kind of courage that lasts. There is power in choosing what not to share, in knowing that mystery isn't deception, it's preservation. And this isn't about locking the world out, it's about letting love finish forming before inviting anyone in. Because once something is whole, it can withstand attention, but while it's still soft, still growing, still learning its own strength, it deserves protection. It deserves quiet, it deserves time. And if courage is measured by what you're willing to stand for when no one is watching, then this choice says everything about what this love means to me. Because I am not running from the world, I am standing with you, choosing depth over display, choosing intention over impulse, choosing a future that doesn't need constant validation to feel real, choosing to guard what matters most, even if that means carrying it quietly, even if that means letting the world wait, even if that means trusting that the strongest promises are the ones made without an audience, the ones that live in actions, in consistency, in presence, in the quiet decision to keep showing up, to keep choosing, to keep protecting what is sacred before it ever needs to be explained, before it ever needs to be seen, before it ever needs to be named. Trust is a strange thing. It doesn't arrive with proof, it arrives with a feeling that asks you to step forward before the ground is fully visible. And this love taught me that waiting for approval can sometimes be another way of avoiding truth. Because when two souls recognize each other, they don't ask the crowd what to do next. They listen inward. They notice how the noise fades when they are together, how decisions stop feeling heavy, how doubt loses its grip. And I realize that instinct is not the opposite of reason. It's reason that has learned how to feel. We didn't build this on permission, we built it on presence, on showing up when it was inconvenient, on choosing honesty even when silence would have been easier. And there were moments when logic had questions, when the world had opinions lined up and ready, but instinct kept answering with calm, with a quiet certainty that didn't need to raise its voice. Because when something is right, it doesn't rush you, it steadies you. And being with you felt like standing still inside a moving world. Approval is addictive. It makes people postpone their lives, waiting for a signal that never fully arrives. And I didn't want us to become a story that stayed in draft mode because we were too busy checking who would understand it, because understanding isn't guaranteed, but alignment is. And alignment happens between two people who are willing to trust what they feel, even when it doesn't come with a manual, even when it doesn't match expectations, even when it asks for bravery instead of reassurance. This choice wasn't impulsive, it was instinct refined by time, shaped by consistency, proven in small moments where you chose me without spectacle, where I chose you without hesitation. And somewhere along the way, trust stopped being a leap and became a stance, a way of standing in the world together without constantly looking back for nods of approval, because the most honest commitments don't come from consensus, they come from clarity. I've learned that when you wait for everyone to agree, you give everyone power over your future, and this love didn't ask for that kind of permission. It asked for loyalty, for courage, for the willingness to say this is enough, even if it confuses others, even if it challenges traditions, even if it disrupts expectations. because a life lived by instinct is not reckless. It's intentional in a deeper way. It chooses truth over comfort, meaning over convenience. Trusting instinct means accepting responsibility. It means knowing that if this path is ours, we walk it fully, without blaming the world for what we chose, without hiding behind excuses, and that kind of trust feels clean, it feels adult, it feels like ownership of one's heart. And when I imagine choosing you without waiting for applause, it doesn't feel lonely, it feels complete. Ete, because partnership isn't strengthened by witnesses, it's strengthened by mutual confidence. There is a quiet freedom in deciding without asking, in building something because it feels aligned rather than approved, and this secret wedding isn't a rebellion, it's a resolution, a moment where two people decide that their inner compass is enough, that their shared direction matters more than external validation, that love doesn't need a committee, it needs commitment. And commitment grows strongest when it's chosen deliberately, calmly, with eyes open and heart steady, trusting that what feels right now will still feel right when the noise fades, when the opinions change, when only the two of us remain standing in the truth we chose together, guided not by permission but by instinct, by trust, by the quiet certainty that some decisions are meant to be made from the inside out. Forever doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it slips into your life disguised as a moment that feels familiar before it makes sense. And by the time you recognize it, it's already woven into your days, into your habits, into the way you imagine tomorrow. And this is how it began for us, not with a declaration, but with a noticing, a slow awareness that life felt more grounded, more intentional, more complete. And I realized that forever doesn't start at a ceremony, it starts the first time you choose someone without needing a reason. Most beginnings are invisible. They happen long before anyone is invited, long before vows are spoken, and we have already begun. In the way we show up, in the way we stay present when things are uncertain, in the way we don't run at the first sign of difficulty. Because permanence isn't created in a single moment. It's created in repetition, in choosing again and again, even when the choice is quiet, even when it's unnoticed, even when it feels ordinary, because ordinary love, lived consistently, becomes extraordinary over time. This forever didn't wait for permission or timing to be perfect. It grew in the spaces between days, in shared silence, in conversations that didn't need conclusions, and I understood that by the time a wedding happens, the real work has already been done, the commitment has already been lived, and the ceremony is just a punctuation mark, not the sentence itself. And what we have written together already feels complete, already feels steady, already feels real. There's something powerful about knowing that forever can begin before it's named, that two people can be married in intention long before they are married in form. And the secret wedding isn't the start, it's the acknowledgement of something that has been unfolding quietly, patiently, without witnesses, and that makes it stronger, not weaker, because it isn't rushed into existence by excitement. It's arrived at through understanding. When I think about the future, I don't see a dramatic turning point, I see continuity. The same trust carrying forward, the same calm expanding, the same choice being honored day after day. And that's how I know this is real, because it doesn't depend on novelty. It depends on presence. And presence is what lasts when everything else fades. This forever begins now, not because it's announced, but because it's chosen. Because two people decided that what they have is worth committing to without conditions, without delays, without needing the world to witness the moment it became true. And maybe one day this beginning will be visible, or maybe it will remain known only to us. But either way, it has already started, already taken root, already shaped the way we walk forward together, not waiting for a future to arrive, but living inside it quietly, deliberately, fully. Love doesn't arrive all at once, it arrives in layers, and by the time you realize how deep it is already rearranged the way you think about time, about choice, about what matters enough to keep. And this is what this fifth truth became for me, the understanding that forever is not a finish line we run toward, it's a direction we agree to walk in, quietly, deliberately, without needing constant signs that we're doing it right. I used to think forever was a promise you make once, something dramatic, something you say out loud and then hope holds together. But this love taught me that forever is practiced. It's rehearsed in ordinary moments, in how you listen when you're tired, in how you stay when it would be easier to drift, in how you protect each other from becoming smaller versions of yourselves. And somewhere in that practice, forever stops being an idea and becomes a habit. This is the part no one claps for: the slow accumulation of trust, the uncelebrated consistency, the choice to show up even when the moment doesn't feel meaningful, because meaning doesn't announce itself either. It builds quietly, the way a life does. And when I think about committing to you, it doesn't feel like stepping into something unknown. It feels like continuing something that's already proven it can hold weight. Time behaves differently when love is real. It stops rushing. It stops demanding proof. It stretches instead of presses. And the future stops feeling like a question mark and starts feeling like a continuation, not because everything is certain, but because the foundation is steady. And steadiness is more convincing than excitement, more durable than passion alone, and far more honest than promises made only in good weather. I've learned that forever isn't protected by big moments, it's protected by small decisions made correctly over and over again. Decisions to speak instead of withdraw, to stay curious instead of defensive, to choose growth instead of comfort. And this is why the idea of a secret wedding feels aligned. Because what we are committing to doesn't rely on spectacle, it relies on intention, and intention doesn't need witnesses to be real. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're not starting something fragile. You're continuing something resilient, something that has already survived silence, distance, uncertainty, something that has already chosen depth over display. And this forever doesn't feel fragile to me. It feels grounded, like something that has weight, like something that knows where it stands even when no one is watching. I don't imagine forever as a fixed image. I imagine it as movement, as two people adjusting without losing alignment, adapting without losing identity, walking forward without dragging the past behind them. And that kind of future doesn't scare me, it steadies me, because it isn't based on fantasy, it's based on awareness, on knowing who you are and choosing you anyway, again and again, without illusions. This commitment isn't about guaranteeing happiness, it's about guaranteeing presence, the willingness to remain engaged even when things are imperfect, even when growth is uncomfortable, even when love asks more of you than it gives back in the moment. Because that's where durability is formed, not in constant ease, but in mutual effort that doesn't keep score. What makes this forever different is that it doesn't feel like an ending to anything. It feels like permission to continue honestly, without hiding behind roles, without performing certainty, without pretending that love is something you finish understanding. Because the truth is, love keeps revealing itself over time, and the best commitments leave room for that revelation. When I imagine us years from now, I don't see a single defining moment, I see a pattern, a rhythm of choosing each other in ways that look ordinary from the outside but feel significant from within. And that's the kind of forever I believe in. One that doesn't depend on memory alone, but on momentum, on the quiet decision to keep moving in the same direction together. This keynote isn't about romance in the dramatic sense. It's about endurance, about alignment, about the strength that comes from consistency. And choosing a secret wedding is just an extension of that philosophy, because what we are building doesn't need to be rushed into visibility. It needs to be lived into reality, slowly, honestly, without pressure to look like anything other than what it is. Forever, in this sense, is not something we promise to reach. It's something we are already practicing, already inhabiting, already shaping through the way we treat each other now. And that makes this commitment feel less like a leap and more like a continuation, less like a declaration and more like a confirmation of what has been quietly true for a long time.